plan. So my project was on training for my half marathon. And I thought doing a half marathon would be fun because it would be a new challenge. I've never done any sort of long-term aerobic exercise before. I've only done, short-term lactic acid producing fast twitch muscle exercise. So I thought that implementing this new exercise into my routine would be really fun. And obviously, throughout class, we've learned the extreme benefits that come from running and aerobic exercise and the prevention of disease and, how it improves your cardiovascular health. And I thought that it would be really beneficial for me to implement that into my routine starting now, just sort of as a good preventative measure, as well as just improving my health overall. And I figured that I would do my project on this because I already paid for the race and I was committed to doing it. So throughout the course of 10 weeks or so, I was going to measure how my heart rate, resting blood pressure, BMI, and weight changed. And I hypothesized that my weight and resting blood pressure will remain the same, while my BMI and resting heart rate will change secondary to an improved aerobic capacity. So here's the calendar that I followed for my training. I made this for myself, and I only gave myself about 4 weeks to really increase from 6 miles to 13 miles. And so at the end of every week, I would measure my BMI, my weight, heart rate, and blood pressure and plot this and determine the differences based off of that. And in addition, my Apple Watch was a really great, useful method or way to measure these sort of things because it also told me my average heart rate and kept my pace and how many times I stopped. And so in addition, I determined my max heart rate from a calculation, and I wanted to train between 65 and 85% of that max heart rate, which I found to be 192. So after these 10 weeks, I found that there was no statistically significant decrease in my BMI and weight, but they did drop just a little bit. I didn't really expect too many changes from that, so I was okay with it. As well as that, there was no changes in my resting blood pressure, and there were mild changes in my resting heart rate, but that's a really variable measure to take because it's just completely dependent on what I was doing before and what I was doing at the time. So overall, there was not a lot of changes, but this is kind of what I expected. So the limitations for this were that I didn't give myself very much time to train at all. I only gave myself around 10 weeks or so, and I'm not fond of running particularly, so it took me a lot to get myself to run. So I wasn't super happy with my pace, which averaged at around a 9:20 pace or so. In addition, I'm really iron deficient. I've known that since freshman year or so, and I haven't been taking supplements recently. So I think that provided a huge limitation to just basically my subjective feeling of running and how much I enjoyed them. Also, I found that my average heart rate on runs was at around 85% of that max heart rate that I found to be 192. And so I was a little bit surprised by that because I didn't feel that I was at 85% or so. It would have been really helpful to have a VO2 max test to kind of go off of and measure those changes over the course of time as well. And last but not least, I had a wart on the bottom of my toe that totally got in the way of my training, and it was really painful. So there was a couple times where I kind of had to cut my runs short because my wart was bothering me so much. So in conclusion, though there were no statistical differences in my data, I felt better and my performance improved. And I actually ended up having fun. The race was really great, and I was successful in my goal to not stop at all, so I was very pleased about that. And I felt that my training protocol had kind of helped me get to where I wanted to be. So with further research, I would love to have implemented a VO2 max and see how that changes over the course of time. Obviously, a larger sample size, longer period of time, and more data collection would have been really beneficial, as well as implementing a max heart rate test. I think doing an actual test rather than just the calculation would have been really beneficial for this as well. All right, that's it. Thanks, Dr. Flan. Have a good weekend.